With the release of One Punch Man Season 3, I wanted to make videos pitting characters from the One Punch Man verse against various series, and what better way to kick this off than pitting two anime kings against one another, Deep Sea King of One Punch Man versus Meruem the Chimera Ant King of Hunter x Hunter. In this video, we are going to break down the feats and scaling of both characters to determine who is most worthy of their claim to the throne. If you enjoy power scaling and versus battle videos like this, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for weekly videos, and let me know in the comments what verses and battles you'd like to see covered. With that being said, let's get started. Deep Sea King is one of the first major antagonists to be introduced in One Punch Man. Unfortunately, having only stayed around for a grand total of one mini-arc, Deep Sea King isn't exactly swimming in feats, pun not intended. Even still, the feats he does have tend to speak for themselves and are impressive in their own right. In his weakest dehydrated state, Deep Sea King blitzes the A-class hero Lightning Max from over a city block away. Prior to this, Deep Sea King was so far away from Lightning Max that he needed binoculars to identify and keep track of Deep Sea King. So the distance Deep Sea King crossed to blitz Lightning Max was significant. Deep Sea King moving faster than eyesight over this distance is worthy of note, considering that humans can perceive 13 millisecond time frames. For reference, during this time frame, sound can only cross a mere 4.6 meters, so this feat should be well into hypersonic territory. As one would expect from that feat alone, Deep Sea King then makes quick work of Lightning Max and would have killed him if not for the intervention of S-class hero Peri Peri Prisoner. At the beginning of the fight, Deep Sea King and Peri Peri Prisoner land one punch each, but it is clear that Deep Sea King's punch had a greater effect on Peri Peri Prisoner than the vice versa. Following this, Deep Sea King takes barrages of punches from Peri Peri Prisoner, but when the dust clears, this happens. This is the same Peri Peri Prisoner that is stronger than the Hammerhead battlesuits, the same battlesuits that can one-shot a skyscraper. Bear in mind this is all dehydrated Deep Sea King. When in his hydrated form, his physical stats are greatly enhanced. He goes from getting embarrassed by speed of Sound Sonic to pressuring and even tagging him. In this sequence, we get another impressive speed feat from Deep Sea King, where he moves so fast that rain is made to fall in intense slow motion, which would reach the high hypersonic ranges. The manga admittedly makes it somewhat hard to narrow down the relative distance crossed between Deep Sea King and the raindrops, but the anime adaptation gives us some good insights, placing this feat at around Mach 44 as a ballpark estimate. Following this, Deep Sea King casually breaks through a missile-proof shelter and eats a blast from Genos that he tanks but dehydrates him. Even still, this is impressive because Genos at this stage in One Punch Man has consistent town level feats, like wiping out mosquitoes over a 500 meter radius or destroying the House of Evolution and vaporizing a sizable chunk of two separate mountains with a single blast. Just as consistent is Genos' ability to tank his own energy blasts, quite literally no-selling being at the epicenter of his own attacks and face-tanking his incineration cannon being reflected back at him. This is relevant to Deep Sea King scaling considering his attacks do way more damage to Genos. As far as abilities, Deep Sea King has piercing attacks in the form of his internal mores, a healing factor, and acid spit potent enough to burn straight through Genos' metallic body. In order to appreciate Meruem's power level, it is prudent to understand the world he occupies and the world he seeks to rule. As someone who is established as practically unrivaled in strength, to the point of having incalculable power level compared to literally every other character in data books, it goes without saying that Meruem is the unequivocal beneficiary of almost every line of scaling and every feat performed in Hunter x Hunter. Meruem's Royal Guard all have extremely consistent, massively hypersonic feats. Pito, for example, fresh out of the womb, leaped from the Chimera ant nest to kite in an instant. For context, the Chimera ant nest that Pito leaped from boasts absolutely colossal sizes, easily thousands of meters high. Using angular sizing and factoring in the height of the structure, we consistently get a distance of roughly and upwards of 25 kilometers. This makes sense given the sheer breadth of the topography we are shown, even depicting entire lakes running within that distance. As far as time frame goes, many calcs use human reaction time since Kite was unable to react. However, to be conservative, I'll stick with 1 second, which makes his feat Mach 72. Moreover, in high stress situations, Pito can go even faster. See, Pito's speed comes from contracting her muscles and leaping off. During the palace invasion, Pito's leg muscles swelled up to twice the size they were against Kite, implying she got proportionally faster. And on top of that, Pito can amp her physicals even beyond that with her Hatsu, which lets her surpass her physical limitations. Needless to say, her demonstrated Mach 72 speeds are nowhere near her limit. Furthermore, Youpi and Poof flew to the site of the Rose Bomb explosion in a short time frame. The epicenter of the mushroom cloud lies visibly on the horizon from a viewing height above the clouds. The distance to the horizon from above cloud height is upwards of 150 kilometers, so this feat is easily above Mach 100. In terms of scaling, even with this feat, Poof admits he would struggle against Godspeed Killua in speed. We later see post-mortem Pito move relative in speed to Godspeed Killua, post-mortem Pito being Pito's strongest form and Pito herself already being the most powerful of the Royal Guard. This is all worthy of note because Pito was already massively outsped by Adult Gon, clearing an entire room's distance and beyond while she is mid-attack. He can casually react to and counter Pito's attacks even when amped. Adult Gon is, at best, relative to, if not equals with pre-Rose Meruem by statements, so obviously post-Rose Meruem scales notably above this. And that too is consistent with post-Rose Meruem's own speed feat of literally statuing Knuckle running at full speed from kilometers away. A couple of things to consider here. First, distance. Meruem was in the middle of the palace. Knuckle was outside of the palace running among the hypnotized crowd. Scaling the distance to the palace, we can easily discern the distance Meruem crossed. The dimension of the palace can be extrapolated from this scan, where we see how it compares to an explicitly 5-kilometer long tunnel. The length of the palace is about 1/5 of the tunnel, the width 1/3. The palace should easily be several kilometers, and Meruem effortlessly statued Knuckle across that massive distance. Which brings us to Knuckle's own speed. Knuckle was heavily implied to be moving at his top sprinting speed, which is consistent with not only visuals but also the context of the situation, Knuckle literally running away from Meruem to get help. But we could take the low end and compare this to Gon and Killua. Travel speed wise, they make horses look slow, abandoning them in favor of getting to their destination by foot. Knuckle is far superior to these versions of Gon and Killua, both by virtue of how Knuckle performed against them to even Gon and Killua's own admission. However, if we make the ever so gracious assumption that Knuckle was moving at horse speed, which mind you is slower than Hunter x Hammer characters, let alone Gon and Killua, he would be moving at a mere 55 miles per hour. With Meruem, Knuckle literally moves no discernible distance, visually not even crossing a foot. But let's say he does for the sake of argument. Well, given a distance of 1 kilometer cross from Meruem, to travel that distance before Knuckle could even cross a foot at horse speed, he would have to be moving at Mach 230 plus. For the record, this is a criminal lowball of Knuckles' travel speed concerning even he is capable of outrunning Youpi's explosion from the epicenter. In terms of Meruem's power level, we could once again look to the Royal Guard to set a baseline. Youpi's Rage Blast explosions can vaporize massive chunks of the ground, which comes out to large town to small city level in potency. Even more impressive than the AP of the Rage Blast is Youpi's durability for nuzzling them. I often see the claim thrown around that Youpi is somehow immune to his explosions or something, but by principle this doesn't make sense given Genthru, who has a similar ability that turns his hands into bombs which can detonate, who still has to actively use Nen defenses to protect himself from the explosions he creates. On top of the fact that literally being at ground zero of any explosion would require you to take its force whether it emanates from you or not. When post-Rose Meruem absorbs the Nen of Poof and Youpi, he inherits a more powerful version of Rage Blast, vaporizing a hillside. We have a reference point for its size, which can be estimated by the degree to which it dwarfed the height of Meruem's blast, which in turn dwarfed the APR construct, easily making it hundreds of meters tall. With this in mind, vaporizing the area Meruem did easily net city level as a minimum and can get as high as mountain level. As you may have noticed, Meruem is already tiers above Deep Sea King in both speed and power, and Meruem's abilities only exacerbate these disparities. Meruem in its post-Rose form has flight and aerial agility, meaning that keeping Deep Sea King at range while spamming Rage Blast is extremely viable, and dodging these Rage Blasts is unlikely, not only because of their massive area of effect, but also because Nen is invisible to non-Nen users. The nail in the coffin for Deep Sea King, however, is Meruem's Nen, specifically what I like to call Nen Crush. Nen Crush is essentially just exposure to malicious Nen, which explicitly destroys the mind. When exposed to Pito's Nen, Palm had a mental breakdown, her psyche compared to that of a broken doll. Meruem's Nen Crush takes this to the next level, literally physically aging its victims. Nen Crush can be used through the medium of N, which expands his Nen across several kilometers at the speed of light, filling everyone within its effect with despair. Deep Sea King has no mental resistances of any kind, so Meruem can honestly win this fight by literally just flexing his aura. All in all, this is pretty much easy work for Meruem. And yeah, that's the video. This is my first 100 scaling video. I'm trying to get more into it because, I have a lot of different arguments that I don't think have been used before. So, just kind of shaking off the cobwebs. And we'll get One Punch Man videos out there as well. Hopefully they'll be more competitive this time or next time, whatever. But yeah, easy out.